We'll start with the first speaker, uh, Kartik Shivaprasad. He is a professional with more than 20 years in power and energy sector in Germany and India, with working in the fields of controls and digitization. So, and he works with global team to roll out technology as well as solutions for Asia Pacific region in line with assessed market trends. So he works with Siemens and he is the country business manager for the South Asia region. So welcome Kartik, and his topic is also very interesting, and it is cyber security for OT environment. So all of you must be a bit surprised that how it will help asset integrity. And so Karthik will help you understand how cyber security, the data that we are managing so much, such huge amount of data, the integrity as well as the loss of that data also needs to be maintained. So over to you, Karthik.
There's been a lot that's been discussed in our, over a period which we have seen on digital transformation. And we also really say what exactly is digital, the digital, interventions that can bring into the business in terms of asset management, in terms of predictive to, rather reactive to, predictive to prescriptive maintenance regime, and a lot more value in terms of how we can optimize the performance of the units and assets. Yeah. So my topic is slightly different, which is going to be more about how are we also, with the digitalization aspect, going to ensure that it's going to bring in certain bit of cyber security, which is one of the key elements that I'm going to talk about. So from a overall perspective, it is rightly placed where we are talking about assets and asset risk management. So I'll keep it as simple as possible and as short as possible so that we can try to meet the timelines. Yeah. So this is how I've kind of structured it. So we have, how digitalization is revolutionizing us, and then what is the changing threat landscape in the energy domain. That's what I want to talk about, and what can cyber security as a perspective bring in to ensure the safety of the assets that we so rely upon, in order to ensure the performance. Yeah. So that's the three aspects I talk about. Yeah. And then we are open for questions as and when we talk about it. So primarily, we do know digitalization has changed the way of our life. We talk about bookstores through Kindle. We know Spotify. Now with Deepika Padukone being the brand ambassador, almost all of us know what Spotify is. And then we know what a marketplace is, which has replaced Yellow Pages in one shot. We also can hail a Uber or a Ola, which is again something one-stop taxi that's available at our doorstep. So this is something that digital has brought in just in our day-to-day life. Now, what's its impact that's been over the industry? Primarily, we look at this, we see that digital is seen as something of a fourth industrial revolution. So we talk about the first level when it was industrialization. The second level was on the electrification, where mass electricity was produced and could be used for production and manufacturing. And the third one, which we saw, was the automation. So all that was probably manual was moved into automative mode, and we tried to streamline processes. It improved efficiency. The fourth aspect which we talk about is what we talk about is the digitalization, and this primarily has been the fourth revolution, and it's bringing in ways and means of improving efficiency. Just saying World Economic Forum claims that more than trillions of dollars can be saved just bringing in digital interventions to the oil and gas industry. So that's the number we are talking about. It's huge. So which is one thing which is underliningly clear to us, that digital interventions are a necessity, and it is going to bring benefit to the process. While that said, we also have a challenge. We need to ensure that these digital assets or interventions need to be protected so that we don't have a threat towards that. That's where we talk about the threat. We talk about an energy sector overall, which is what we see the cyber security coming into picture. You would see that we have faced a lot of cybersecurity related issues or topics in the recent past. To name a few of them, we have as early as It started as early as 2010, and till 2021, we have seen many cases. Recently, we have also heard that the Bombay grid, I mean Mumbai grid was blacked out, and one of the key reasons that was suspected was a hack or a basically a cybersecurity threat that came in. The Kudankulam power station had a third-party intervention hacker coming in, so obviously it didn't go to the environment, but yes, the hacking was a clear-cut issue. And these cases, if you see, one of the top cases, we talk about 2018 hacking, which is there here on the new hydro plant. So the entire asset could stop the hydro plant, the hacking could stop the hydro plant completely and term ineffective the entire process that was ongoing, and the production was stopped. So similar examples are there every decade, and it's increasing. This gives us a perspective that cybersecurity is not just about one or mal interventions. It's about the fact that now it's gone. The scales are higher. We see that it could be state-sponsored. It could be to the size of a new scale of terrorism, wherein any country can actually impede the progress by getting into cybersecurity as a reason. So that's how important it is, and that's the reason we talk about cybersecurity today. So if you see the perception, you would see that 56% still believe that we can have a cyber threat some other time, and we also see its a potency is pretty high, and the consequence of such a cyber attack could be really detrimental to the process. So this is the perception that we see when we see in a survey about the level of cybersecurity installed within the plant domain, in the energy vertical in India or abroad. So it's something we need to be aware of, that while we have assets and while we see that this is an issue, we see that this can cause a lot of harm. Key element for us is why am I saying cybersecurity for OT environment? Because for IT, we still have a lot of protection coming in from parties, and we know we have softwares that's running to check on the cyber relation. But when you talk about an OT environment, it's a legacy environment, and you need to ensure that any such modifications need to be taken care of, and if there is an intervention, it needs to be rightly identified and managed. So that's why it makes much more challenging aspect when we look at cybersecurity overall. So these are just some numbers which have been an impact because of a cyber attack. People talk about 1 to 2 million loss per day, and more than 70 million per quarter, and 300 million in a year. So it is substantial, which when we look at what is the investment that you can lose when we have cyber attacks. So it's important that our assets are protected and we take care of it. So these are numbers, but this just gives you the magnitude of how important cybersecurity are when we talk about digital interventions also coming into picture. So this is what I'm talking about, is that when we talk about IT environment, probably we have a new operating system coming in, we have new softwares coming in every 3 to 5 years, and that gets replaced. Our laptops, for example, it keeps moving from 2010 to 2016 and so on, and so the operating system stays. So you have patches, updates, and security updates coming in. Whereas when you talk about a legacy OT system, we have control systems running still on Windows XP in many of our plants, and the upgrades are not available. The operating systems are not supported, making it much more vulnerable. And the moment you have some digital interventions coming in, we need to be much more careful to create the shields to ensure that there is enough security that it cannot be easily entered. That's where cybersecurity comes in. This is the size and the increase the way security has improved. If you see, it's just started as a ransomware at some point of time, and now it's being attacking the critical infrastructures. This has happened in Australia already. It was in news just about 6 months back. We have seen some cases of Mumbai grid as well as Kudankulam in India. We saw a lot of this in the US as well. So now it's also state-sponsored, so we need to be a little careful about it, and the magnitude, the impact is growing. So it's not just about some ransomware that's going to come in. It could be a state-sponsored hack which can actually virtually trigger anything on the OT environment, could potentially be a nuclear bomb. It could be that bad. So we need to be aware of the impact that any such hack can cause. So that's just to tell you how the market is working on cybersecurity and what we need to be aware of. If you look at it, most of the organizations today, when they talk about cybersecurity, are in the early stages or in the middle stages. This constitutes almost 70% of the organizations, and they have to get into the mature stage because on one side we are trying to digitalize more and more. So it's important that we also give the protective shield so that all the assets are protected and we are very clear in the light of it. So that's important, and this statistics is alarming for the fact that we are still not entirely cyber ready as organizations within the energy vertical. And the challenge is that we have a recommendation at this point of time on cyber for Government of India, but it needs to be firmed up and we need to be way ahead. A lot of countries already have a very, very strict cyber guideline that makes it mandatory and they're protecting their assets, but we are still not there. However, that said, it's also the responsibility of the industry and the asset owner to make their system less and less vulnerable and more secure. So that's key element. While the policy will eventually come in, what's more important is to be proactive to take it forward. So that said, I would probably talk about Siemens' perspective in the next 2 minutes, which have been given. So key element for us is how do we protect the data? How do we use the data? How do we ensure that we are better aware of a situation? So how exactly can we make a change or an impact that would actually bring in a lot more security to our assets? That's the topic we are talking about here. So that said, we kind of put it in 4 different steps. So I would say we start off with a basic step of evaluating our assets, our networks, our systems to see where we fit in. So we could start off with just a gap assessment to understand, are we following the basic cybersecurity norms? Do we have the solution for it? Are we addressing as a team that we are following the basic norms of ensuring that the USB ports are hardened, the basic drive ports are hardened, and then we are not bringing in any third-party items and using in the network. So the culture that is there, that needs to be evaluated. So that's the step 1. We evaluate where we fit in, how we can use it better. The step 2 is we could implement these basic requirements to ensure that the first level security can be addressed. That is within the control system, we can harden the system, we can try to upgrade it to the latest operating system to ensure that all those aspects of the system gets covered because of security patch that's going to come in as an update for the systems, operating system. So that could be done. And then we also talk about ensuring the communication to protect it using a data diode step of it. So that implemented, we can then take it to the next level, which is what I would say the next level is what I would say level 2 or level 3 in this number 3 or 4. So in the level 3, what we do is we can stepwise analyze after that, once these basic steps are taken care of, how the data is getting exchanged, whether there are still vulnerabilities, as and when we have an online vulnerability, we can also check and do it. And then, as a 4th step, we can do the complete management of it. We continuously monitor the system. We check if there are anomaly data exchange in terms of data transfer, which is not as per a pattern, and then that can be assessed. We could also do a 24/7 managed support in case there is an incident that we see there is a vulnerability or there has been a cyber attack. The biggest question is, how are we supposed to respond? So idea is we need to have, and the technology is changing so fast, are we well positioned to do it or not? That's the next question. So if we are doing it that way, that could be the next step that we need to implement to ensure that we have a cyber solution so that the asset is least vulnerable, least damaged if there is an attack also, and we have an action plan for immediately putting things in place. So this is stepwise how we see progress of it and how we can implement cybersecurity within the system. This is this is a matrix, 2x2 matrix, which talks about why we prefer a OT company, a company like Siemens working on the OT environment is because we understand the process, we understand the control systems, the domain, as well as the fact about the solution that works in. So it brings in the perspective what an IT company can't do or a simple software company can't do. That's the value addition we can bring in, which could actually be a game changer when we're talking about cybersecurity in the OT environment. This gives us a complete gamut of area that gets covered. We are protecting the business, and at the same time, we are making the asset less vulnerable. At the same time, we move towards the digital transformation within the organization to understand what is the culture that should be when you're talking about a digital solution that's being bring in, and what are the precautions and what are the steps that they need to take so that we transform accordingly.
You need to wrap up, Kartik.
Yep.
Yeah?
Last but not the least, to summarize it, I guess what's important is cybersecurity is something that we need to keep in mind when we are going as more digital. It's important that we are also aware that with the digitalization, we need to take proper steps to kind of protect the assets, and for that, we need to take steps and invest our time and the company's investment onto this. That's the solution. Thank you so much.